So let's talk about Call of Duty. None of you seem to be very happy with your chosen game at the moment. We've got Modern Warfare fans who are feeling left behind. We have Cold War fans who are being driven into Warzone unnecessarily. And we have Warzone fans dealing with 30, shall we say, not so great balanced weapons being dumped into their game. I'm joined here by Richie Bracamonte, our local Call of Duty expert. And we're going to kind of go over some of the things that you guys are all unhappy about and maybe how we got here and some of the things we can do to fix it. As always, make sure you guys give us the old thumbs up on YouTube and subscribe to the channel if you guys want to talk about more Call of Duty. All right, let's get into it. Richie, why don't you talk a little bit about kind of like the development cycle and how you think we actually got here?
Sure. So the development cycle for Cold War was shifted sort of at the last minute. It was reported that Sledgehammer Games and Raven were supposed to work on the next game. But I think to ride the coattails and the successful wave of the Modern Warfare reboot, Cold War wanted to jump in and sort of do the same thing. So Treyarch got involved at the last minute. And that brings us to where we are now. This merger of Cold War and Warzone specifically is steamrolling the Modern Warfare universe with all their guns, and they're kind of stitching this connection together between both universes, sort of being in the same timeline. On paper, it was very bold, and when I first heard about it, I was like, no way they're going to pull this off. It's a rumor, but it's happening. Here we are, and it's kind of a mess. So many guns were introduced haphazardly into the system. An entirely different system, like literally there are two different systems that are being fused together to try to play nice between both games, and it's rushed. It was pretty rough, and it's being slowly ironed out as far as guns go, but it was a rough launch and a lot of people weren't happy. Some were because of the overpoweredness of some specific guns.
The design philosophy between the two games is so different that it's worse than just 30 guns being added. So like Cold War weapons, if you play Black Ops Cold War, those guns don't have the nuances of Modern Warfare. So Modern Warfare has an attachment system with like very, very specific pros and cons. And you could put an attachment on a gun that'll make some areas of the gun better and some worse. Whereas Cold War tended to not have that. It was just more of a traditional Call of Duty game. So adding these weapons into Warzone, which is what they both share, that have very few weaknesses and only get better as you add attachments versus the Modern Warfare guns, it made many of them like instantly overpowered. Now, that being said, it kind of seems like that they took mostly just the models from Cold War and did the best they could to put some semblance of similarities between them. For example, the monolithic suppressor is on Cold War guns. It's just called something else. But all this just led to like a lot of confusion and the perception that the game had just been, Warzone at least, had been just completely broken. So if Warzone is the shared experience between Cold War and Modern Warfare, Richie, what's this like for Modern Warfare players who've been playing this game for over a year now?
The core experience is still there. It's still fun to play. It's probably as good as it's going to get at this point. It was a Modern Warfare. We both agreed did a lot of things right. But right now it's kind of getting forgotten. Like aside from the progression system, which is shared between 3 titles, Modern Warfare as a standalone, game is lacking the support already, which is common because, the new game is out. In fact, and one new game is out and one game is still like Warzone is still heavily being used right now by like everyone. It's a fan favorite, but that whole engine, that whole system was based on Modern Warfare. And I know Modern Warfare players are still out there for sure, but they're getting the shaft with everything, with any sort of update. And it sucks this time around specifically. It stings because that was such a good game, and it had a big player base that I think is still very much there. But they're expecting you to go to Warzone. Your battle pass in Modern Warfare is like a slap in the face because it's all for, like, you can unlock things, but they're for Warzone, which they just assume you play, or Cold War, which you might not even own.
You can buy the season pass from within Modern Warfare, not knowing that it only encompasses Cold War. And it's even worse than that because you can do things like you think you've unlocked the MAC-10, which is the overpowered gun in Warzone. You can see the model of the MAC-10 from Modern Warfare. But when you go into your SMG category, it's not there. And that's because it's not a gun that you can use in the core modes. But to make things even more kind of galling, Warzone runs on the Modern Warfare engine. So the MAC-10 is in the Modern Warfare engine. It is in the game. They just simply won't allow you to use it within Modern Warfare. So it's so weird. You've basically paid for something in one game, and you're getting progression in one game that is only tied to a completely separate game that you might not own. And it kind of gives you this I don't know, consolation prize where you can use it in Warzone. But yeah, it feels kind of scummy. Like, it's weird how Modern Warfare has been completely erased.
It has. Definitely, it's been forgotten. Like, today I was playing a little Modern Warfare multiplayer, and I unlocked a blueprint for the M16. And I was like, oh, there it is. They lay it out on the table, but it's like, this gun is not available in Modern Warfare, just as a standalone game. So I was like, what the hell? Like, I forgot that it's just messy and scummy. Like, don't show me that. I don't assume I don't have Cold War. Don't assume everyone does.
Yeah, in a weird way, it'd be better if they just hid it and like it didn't actually show up until you opened Cold War. Okay, so that's why Modern Warfare players probably aren't too happy right now. They feel like they've been left behind, forgotten a bit. So why are Cold War players also not happy right now? Because they have the brand new game.
They have their own game. It's brand new. You're right. But if they're trying to get the full experience and the integration with Warzone, we talked about this whole system and how it's completely different. It's like, it may not be going backwards for some people, but it's a different style of gameplay. You need longer range guns, and if you're comfortable with the Cold War guns, a lot of them don't carry over that well into Warzone. It'll seem like a different experience entirely, and even down to the little things like kicking open a door is a thing in Warzone. Super sprinting, mounting guns. If you're playing Warzone, it's fine, but if you're coming from Cold War and you wanted to check out Warzone, it's a little jarring for sure. And hopefully that'll be solved with the upcoming rumored new Cold War based Warzone map, which is all the Dirty Bomb maps combined. So they're saying, so the rumor is, but that won't come for a while. Fortunately, Warzone is free, so you don't have to take it or leave it. But if you want the full experience right now, it's not a good time to dip your toes into both if you're new.
Warzone is Modern Warfare. It was broken away from Modern Warfare. It runs on Modern Warfare's engine. So a lot of what we're seeing, people out there saying is they're really not happy to be forced into this other game, which is Warzone, to complete the challenges from Cold War. There's also just like weird little things like the button presses for certain menus, like challenges are different in each game. And it's just a weird, jarring transition for people who just wanted to play Cold War and didn't want to play Modern Warfare. I mean, these are two very different audiences. It's hard to stress that enough. It's like old school Call of Duty versus milsim inspired folks who didn't want traditional Call of Duty. All right, so back to Warzone. Richie, there's some other things that you've noticed going on in the game that's kind of ruining the experience for everybody. Why don't you dig into that?
For sure. We're talking about hackers. It's a very hot topic right now. A new one in some ways, because there have always been hackers in Warzone since launch. Things like aimbotting and shooting through walls and anything like that. Advanced controller mods. People are adding their own hardware to just hack. But there are new sort of problems popping up based on what sort of router you use, and you're able to get into special lobbies where players, they call them bot lobbies because the players are so low level that they just feel like bots. And it's really controversial in terms of competitive Call of Duty, where that's obviously not allowed. It's a big problem in the streaming community and the YouTuber community. People are finagling their way into these lobbies and making themselves look good, and it's just not cool. It's not allowed, and it's the latest thing right now. So we're not happy to see it, and it's hard to apparently it's hard to fix this sort of problem because Activision is not working on it, I would say. Currently, I think they're starting to become aware of this sort of specific issue, but it's hard to fix all this stuff at once. There's always something going on in terms of hacking or problems like technical issues with Warzone, and this is just sort of the thing of the week.
All right, so sort of high level, just real quick. So nobody's happy. Modern Warfare people have been erased to a certain extent. Cold War players are being forced into Warzone, and Warzone players are seeing issues with weapons and also cheating. Richie, what do you think Activision can kind of focus on next to bring all of these like studios and games together, to the extent that's realistic in the near future?
I did always fantasize about just tearing them apart and keeping these universes separate, but I don't think it's going to happen. So I suggest, and I'm hopeful that they can just fix these issues on a bigger scale, because it's these little granular things that really mess up the experience. They become more than granular when they're not accounted for and when they're not fixed. It just becomes a glaring issue. So fix what you have now, because I love Warzone at its core, and the idea of an integration was cool. So let's just keep it going, but fix it. That's all I can hope for.
The idea of doubling down on Warzone is a good one. They need to get back into what Apex does or Fortnite. Really get into those map events and get people's excitement back up. In the future, like obviously it wasn't possible this time, but they do need to get all their games on the same engine, so you don't run into these like awkward situations switching back and forth between mechanics. It really seems like Modern Warfare is the future. It's more of a platform than a game, in my opinion, and I think they could really double down on just building on top of that. But yeah, like I do want to stress that the idea was good, and the idea that you can play any Call of Duty game and cross progress between other Call of Duty games is awesome. As we mentioned, maybe they ought to hide that when you're in one game and just give you everything at once when you get to the other game, so you don't feel like you're awkwardly progressing in a game you don't own. Just bring it all together. Same engine, cross progression, cross play, and maybe not dump 30 weapons into Warzone in one go.
Right. It was ambitious, but maybe a little too ambitious, and it had a rocky launch for sure.
All right. Well, we want to hear what you guys think. Are you also equally unhappy with your Call of Duty game of choice right now? Or is everything going great and you're sitting pretty? Richie and I also make a ton of other Call of Duty content. Don't forget to check out our Broken Guns Part 1 and 2, where we go through all of Call of Duty history and call out your favorite most broken weapons. And again, if you guys get that chance, give us the old thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. All right. Thank you so much for watching, everybody.
Bye.